Welcome into the Pool Genius Pick Show for NFL Week number 4. My name is Spencer. I am joined by our lead analyst over at Pool Genius, Jason Lisk. And last week, Jason, we asked the audience for likes and comments and subscriptions, and we got them. So thank you all for that. But what we all want to know is, did you get any street cred from your kids for all that?
No, I was told that A, I didn't tell you to do that, Dad, and B, that I was cringe. So this is the current state of things. So I'm cringe. But if you like cringe, hit like and subscribe again, and I'll try to satisfy your cringe needs.
Yeah, and we actually we brought up the topic of nicknames last week. We got a couple of good ones in the comment section. Of course, I brought up Jason the Pool Guy, and you weren't a huge fan of that because you didn't want to confuse people into thinking you were checking chlorine levels and things like that. So, we'll put that in the maybe pile. We got one. I'm a fan of this one. Ja Pool is one that we put in there. As someone who has a Ja Rule playlist in their Spotify account ready to go at all times, I will personally applaud that one. Another one we had Pool Guru, which that one's very on brand. I like that one. We'll put that in the maybe pile. And then another one, Jason the Genius. I do like that one. I know
That's
you don't like that one,
the
Jason.
envelope quite a bit there. Yeah,
But
that's
but
yeah.
hey, I will say, like, we did a Pool Genius trivia night one time, at a meetup in Phoenix, Scottsdale area, and I think, Jason, you had, like, 75% of the answers for our 8 to 10-man team. So I think the Pool Jason the Genius one is somewhat apt. I will say that you have a very wide range of knowledge, and, I'm not trying to make you blush or anything on this, but,
Yeah,
who won the NCAA national championship in 1981?
well, that's easy.
See?
Yeah,
Who is it?
that's Indiana,
See?
with Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
what
I
about
know every NCAA
1994?
champion. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of meaningless information in my head, that I can rattle off. So 70% is generous. Everybody on the team contributed. I did know a little too much about 14th century English history,
That was the tiebreaker that we got in
but,
I don't even remember what the question was, but we were within, like, 30 years
mm,
of some historical event. I remember King Henry was involved, but I don't
it was the birth of King Henry VIII's dad. Yeah, we were within, like, 20 years.
see, you remember that, and I was like, I don't remember the detail of it.
Yeah, and so yeah, so I don't think people are tuning in, though, for their, English history lessons.
Right.
A little War of the Roses, but maybe they are because we do wanna get some conflicts and where you can find value in week.
If so, you definitely got your fix from this video. Let's get to that non-useless knowledge in your head, Jason. Let's talk NFL Week 4. And we're gonna do it like we did it last week. We're gonna start out with our value picks in game winner pools. We got 4 of those on tap for you. And then we're gonna go 2 underdog picks that we like, underdogs against the spread, or if you like them to win outright, you can mention that as well. And then our favorite picks against the spread overall. Last week was I mean, I'll come out and say it, and maybe we'll allude to it a little bit later because I'm doing a repeat on one of these teams, but I was dead wrong about one, and it lost, of course. I was pretty right about the other, the Rams I'm talking about, and that lost
Ooh.
against the spread too. So, I'm hoping my luck turns around this week, but let's start out with the 4 value picks in game winner pools. First one we have down here, it's a matchup played in Ireland, Minnesota Vikings versus Pittsburgh Steelers. Just a little bit of value on this one. The Vikings, we give them 55% win odds. Their pick popularity right now is only 45%, so they are favored in this game
Wow.
and not getting picked like it. So a little bit of value on the Vikings. Does that surprise you at all, Jason?
It does because it's not like the Vikings looked bad last week. They won in a blowout, and it was while the final margin can can always be extended by big plays and defensive touchdowns and such. They dominated that game against the Bengals. Meanwhile, the Steelers did not. The Steelers got the key turnovers necessary, but honestly looked bad on offense after the first quarter, and have struggled on defense, in previous games, and New England moved the ball on them. So I mean, I think the odds makers have the better team as the favorite here. Now that doesn't mean it can't go either way. We've seen Pittsburgh win so many games when they don't look like the better team, but they win the turnover battle in recent years. They do just enough to keep Tomlin's 500 or better streak going. But now that they've got back over 500, maybe they don't have that sense of urgency to create so many turnovers across the pond. So I do like the Vikings as the value play here.
I do too, and I would take the Vikings in a game winner pool for all the reasons you said. Plus, you're getting value. And the biggest key for the Vikings last week was they got a lot of defensive players back. They got Van Ginkel, Harrison Smith back, which both of them came up with a turnover in the opening quarter. The pick six was credited to the blitz, and then the tip ball by Harrison Smith. Um, but yeah, so I think the Vikings are the right side. They're healthier on the offensive line too. They got Christian Darrisaw back, so um, Carson Wentz looked pretty good in the pocket last week. Think he can do a serviceable job again. The second game we have on here for game winner pools, a value pick. We have the Atlanta Falcons hosting the Washington Commanders. A lot of uncertainty on the injury front in this game. Jaden Daniels, we're recording this as of Wednesday afternoon. So we don't know if Daniels will be in or out. He was limited at practice as of Wednesday. Keep an eye on that one. Terry McLaurin, he looks pretty iffy as well. We don't know if he's going to play. Right now, the Falcons actually, this line moved. They were like 1.5 point underdogs. Now they're favored by 1.5 points. And they're only getting picked at 23 to 25%. That is both against the spread in spread pools and in game winner pools. So, really, a value play on both. Do you believe in Atlanta here? And what would you do depending on how the injury situation breaks in this one?
Yeah, I mean, you're obviously gonna watch the injury situation to see, and last week I caught the end of it, right? I got closing line value as I predicted by taking the Raiders when they were getting the hook, 'cause I foresaw Daniel sitting out and this line moving further down, and it did, and then it didn't matter. Washington scored 41 points. They only outgained the Raiders by a few. They had the same number of first downs. They got the big plays. Um So it looks really good that Washington did what they did with Mariota, but it's not like they dominated that game statistically. So maybe I'm the glutton for punishment here. I like Atlanta coming off of a shutout. We'll get into more of this later, I think. So I'll save some of it, but I like a team that just got embarrassed. And because for two reasons. One, they just got embarrassed. And two, the public is jumping off. And so to me, this is the kind of play you have to make in pools, to take a stand against, is when the public jumps the other way.
If you're a glutton for punishment, I don't know what that makes me, and that's foreshadowing for my picks later, but, we'll get into that when the time comes. Value pick number 3, another tough one to swallow a little bit, although the opponent, that's a tough team to pick for too. I'm talking about the New York Jets showing value as a 3 point underdog on Monday Night Football, playing on the road at the Miami Dolphins. We're currently giving them 41% win odds as a 3 point dog. Their pick popularity in game winner pools only 25%. Justin Fields still questionable. I don't think that matters as much. I think the difference between Tyrod Taylor and Justin Fields is negligible, and we saw that in the spread last week. Miami looked better at Buffalo. They had a chance to win that game to a throw pick, and it got away from them in the fourth quarter. Would you go out on a limb and take this one in a game winner pool? How are you approaching this? Do you like Miami on extra rest at home after showing signs of life? Or I don't know. It's a tricky one because it is popping as value. but I don't know if you have to go there. I think it depends if you're playing a weekly pool or season long, I would treat this a little differently.
Yeah, I mean, it's season long, I'm probably sticking with Miami because it's not that big of a difference, although it is notable. I think the win odds are like, if it was under a field goal, I would definitely be considering the Jets here if you see that line move. Um, in weeklies for sure, it didn't take much. Because I kinda like the Jets here, in this spot. Like, both teams are 0 and 3, correct? They both lost, and so that we yeah, I got 2 0 and 3 teams. And, I feel like in some of these situations where you got 2 bad teams that are getting together, go against the one laying points when they haven't been able to win games, and they're expected to. Like, Miami, yeah, they played better, but then they made the key mistakes when the game was on the line. I don't think Tyrod Taylor versus Justin Fields matters that much because Fields can be such an inefficient passer. Like, he was good in week 1, but he was terrible in week 2 before he left the game. This Jets team, I think, has the better defense, although they were shaky in the season opener. I think this Jets team, I don't know, has like they have a coach who we saw how excited he was on that block hit. We got one coach who's kind of like trying to right a sinking ship, and another who at least is bringing energy. I like the dog here getting points
Yeah.
in this case.
Yeah, against the spread, you're with the Jets, Miami, or depends on the pool for a game winner pool. Season long, you're probably Miami. Weekly, if you want to take a shot, not a bad place to do it. Moving on to our fourth and final value pick we have for this week. Of course, things change, which we want to remind you to go into our football pick'em package on Pool Genius if you're a subscriber. If you are not, you can try a 3-day free trial we have going. If you haven't claimed a free trial already, I will link that in the description below. You can see all of these tools where we're pulling all this data, the public pick popularity, the win odds. It's just one screen where you can see it all and make your decisions from there. And then Jason and I also are contributing to an article every week with updates in real time as these lines move and what it means for your spread and pick 'em pool. So all that is linked in the description below. The fourth value pick that we have is the Kansas City Chiefs
Oh boy.
as an underdog at home against the Baltimore Ravens. Currently, the Chiefs plus 2.5 on the spread. That gives them win odds in the 44 to 45% range. Public is only picking them at 28%. So, spread pools, game winner pools, because that line is less than a field goal, are you thinking Chiefs as the contrarian getting points at home? Like, you are a Chiefs guy. I kinda wanna hear your take on this game because we do have the Ravens rated higher than them in our power rankings. Ravens haven't really lived up to that billing so far this year. Granted, they've played some really good opponents, but, this is a very interesting game, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, like I was eh, first half of that Giants game, you know, it was rough. And I say this, how rich, right? The Chiefs fan gets to complain about. They were still up 9-6. Giants should have had the lead. The Chiefs had squandered opportunities. Giants had turned it over, and the Giants still had that chance until Russ threw that end zone pick right before the half. Then Mahomes made his kind of signature play, escaping pressure, throwing a bomb, pass interference, set up a late field goal that came out of nowhere. Um, so they survived that first half. It was an ugly half. I mean, we had the Pacheco play. If I can go on a rant, the one where Mahomes spiked it backwards to him and then had to go recover his own backwards lateral.
I don't know how he recovered that. That was
I don't
amazing.
know either, but I was watching that live and I was like, "What the heck was Pacheco doing?" He got bumped, but then he turns his back to the play. You're the outlet. You can't do that. Like, I'm like, never have him run around a receiver again. Like, there's so many like the Keystone Cops around Mahomes has been infuriating. But then Tyquan Thornton started making plays out of nowhere because he had not done anything with the Patriots. This team needs receivers, and at least Thornton's starting to step up more so than guys like Justin Watson in the past, who's no longer with the team, and guys like that who have been the cast of characters while Rashee Rice has been out. They could get Worthy back this week. They could. I think that could be a factor. I think the emergence of Thornton, what I saw out of the Chiefs, at least in that second half, gives me hope, which is they started actually like calling plays. The thing is, this Ravens D has been vulnerable. We've seen the big running plays, and I'm not sure the Chiefs are the team to do that against them. Like the way the running game is, like they aren't going to be the Lions or the Bills with James Cook. And so how are they, but I think they can score on the Ravens if they can do more of what they did in the second half. Mahomes is still running for his life. The guy has still got it. I know people are down on him. It should have been such a bad situation. I think the Chiefs might be a bottom 5 team if he were out, based on at least till Rice is back. Just the way the offense has been. But they're at home dogs. Chiefs have been good as a home dog until that Eagles game, and quite honestly, they should have probably won that game. There were some things that happened in that game that, so there's definitely hope. I definitely like the Chiefs in a value spot in a pool. I don't know if I'd pick them outright against spread or just as a play. But if I'm in a pool, I think mixing the Chiefs in is fine because the public's heavily still on Baltimore, and Baltimore's shown some deficiencies on defense.
Yeah, and I think this is one where it comes down to where are you in your pool placement-wise after 3 weeks. If you're in a trailing position, I think it completely makes sense to, take this on as a value play, pick the Chiefs, try to make up some ground if you need to. If you're ahead in your pool, maybe you can play it a little safer with Baltimore. I don't know if that's actually the safe pick, but I mean that from a strategic game theory standpoint, where you don't necessarily have to take your shots against the public on all these value plays that we outline, but something to consider there. So, Jason, let's move to the next segment. Let's do our favorite underdog picks of the week, and I will let you do the honors with yours first.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I think the public is probably gonna break against me heavily, and I'm gonna go to New York. I'm gonna go to a team that has a rookie quarterback making his first start in Jackson Dart,
The New
going
York Giants.
the
I will
New
say
York Football Giants
football Giants, the G.
going against the Los Angeles Chargers, who are 3-0. So we have 0-3 versus 3-0. We have a Giants team that is making that start with Dart, and you're catching 6.5. I mean, I don't know that he's a downgrade. Russ was pretty bad in that Chiefs game. I mean, the costly interceptions in both Dallas, even in the game people said he played well. They should have scored in the red zone, and he did. Like he does not excel in the red zone. Like, yeah, he torched the Dallas defense that is proven to be really, really bad. But other than that, he's looked bad for most of 3 weeks, and he's looked bad even in that Dallas game at key moments, including that overtime interception. I think Dart's gonna actually bring more mobility and hopefully a better, like, coaching approach. Is there the risk this could go really bad? Absolutely. But I also think there's more upside now with the Giants on pulling an upset.
Yeah,
I like that. I like to for them to keep it close against the Chargers team who started 3-0, traveling cross country, uh, and getting the emotion of Jackson Dart in his first game.
yeah, and so we pulled this one out on our Pool Genius Twitter. You can follow us over there at Pool Genius. Since 2010, winless teams going into NFL Week 4 have a 65% against the spread cover rate when they play teams with at least one win. The two that meet that criteria this week, the Saints plus 16.5 at the Bills, and the Giants plus 6 or plus 6.5 versus the Chargers. So you fit that criteria there. Um, well, I guess you have one more best bet. Maybe you're putting it on the Saints. I don't know that, but
Yeah, we'll see.
something to consider there, and with that trend, it's basically trying to extract value. You're taking a team that could be very, very underrated, that the market is overcorrecting on them, in this case, the underdog, the winless team, so, little bit of an angle there, home game for the Giants, could be a close one, you're getting 6 or 6.5 points, I kinda like it. Um for my upset pick, well, I'm not gonna take take them as an outright upset, but, I did last week, that failed me, but I like that they're getting 7.5 points this week. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. They made me look like an idiot, quite frankly, last week, and I think there's still comments coming in on our YouTube channel saying that I got that one wrong, as if I didn't watch that game and realize that I got that one
Yeah,
wrong. But
Spencer is a Minnesota Vikings fan, so he was
that's
emotionally torn there
that's the
because
other thing is I was watching that game around people cheering for Minnesota, so I was, like, kinda cheering for Minnesota because that's the home team, but deep down inside, I was like, "Oh, this bet is going against me completely," but at least I knew it was gone and I could just let go of all that hope basically by the 2nd quarter, but I do like the Bengals. I think they're gonna get their act together a little bit this week. And for all the reasons that you pointed out, a team that just got smoked like Atlanta did last week, they're going to have a better game plan. They're going to have things in line to rectify those issues. And I still believe Jake Browning is at the very least replacement level quarterback. Yeah, he's going to get into trouble sometimes forcing things downfield, trying to get it to Chase and Higgins. Denver does have a good defense, but at the same time, I'm envisioning sort of a lower scoring game where maybe it's a little bit of a slugfest. Denver's trying to run the ball in just bleed the clock in the second half that way, and Cincinnati can kinda hang around with all the playmakers that they have. That game got away from them so fast in Minnesota that they never really had a chance. I think they hang around this one. I think it's a little bit closer, and I like getting plus 7.5, which we still see here on Wednesday afternoon. I think that number, quite frankly, is inflated for a Denver team that hasn't. Yeah, maybe Denver can turn it around, but maybe the Bengals can too. Like, I Denver hasn't inspired much confidence on offense. I think Cincinnati can keep it close. I still think Denver probably wins, but I love the fact that I'm getting more than a touchdown here.
yeah, so I'll give, like, just a my concern is the turnovers, right? He's now up to, I think, 12 career interceptions and, like, 8 career starts, and he leads the NFL this year after last week's performance. So he strikes me as the kinda guy who can make plays. I actually would prefer my backup to probably be like him, right? Make plays, but also make mistakes. Like, I would rather have that than a guy who just did not move the ball if I were to, like, pick a backup, because he at least gives you the chance to pull the upset if things are running hot. But there is that risk against this Denver defense that it goes badly again with some turnovers. That would be the one downside risk I would be concerned about. So I think this might be one of those plays where it pairs well with, like, the over in some ways, like, because if it goes bad, it might be because Denver's gotten some defensive scores and got some turnovers in good field position, if the Bengals do not cover this number. Um, so that's one to think about. But yeah, Cincinnati should. My gosh, that was a butt whipping last week where he just the turnovers. The first week after the Burrow injury, so we'll see how they respond. They've got, it's not they got all pros on that team. Jamar Chase has to step up, right? All that stuff. Tough matchup, but hey, if you want to talk about being the best receiver in the league, go step up when your quarterback's out.
Right. And we'll get into our second best bets of the week against the spread. This could be a favorite or an underdog. Who are you taking in this spot, Jason?
Well, unfortunately, I think it moved from an underdog to a favorite, but I like Atlanta with my second pick, and I'm like I said, I'm going to jump back on against Washington, but this one's in Atlanta. You got Atlanta coming off a 30 to nothing loss. A 30 nothing loss where they outgained the Panthers by over 100 yards. They quite frankly just they had a very bad game, but it wasn't a game where they just couldn't move the ball, and it wasn't a game where their defense got gapped. It was a game where things went against them and it snowballed, but they didn't, it wasn't like on a per play basis. Like, if you look at that play by play, you would say the right team was favored. Atlanta was the favorite. They just had a terrible day. And so I couldn't find this stat before we jumped on. I will find it and we will put it out there. A couple years ago, I did research on teams coming off of getting shut out, and they performed very well the week after, as you might expect, but for a couple reasons. A, everybody's down on them, so you might be getting a little value there. But B, I think these teams, like, if I were a head coach, I'd rather my team get shut out than go out and make a meaningless field goal or put up 6 points. Because if they get shut out, I get to get into them all week the next week. Trust me, those coaches are getting into all those Falcons players. You got shut out. They're calling them all the names in the book. They're putting their time into practice. They were embarrassed. So I like getting a team in an embarrassed spot coming off of it.
Yeah, and you're talking about, teams that got shut out, what they do against the spread the following week. Is that what your analysis was on?
Yes. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'll find those numbers, but I know I had pulled it a couple years ago. There's probably been a few shutouts since, so I'll need to update it, but I couldn't find it in our conversations. It's somewhere lurking out there. I'll find it.
So, yeah, Atlanta is your pick, and they get the Commanders at home in this matchup, now favored by.
Yeah. Terry McLaurin not practicing today, so that's a factor. Certainly wasn't a big part of their blowout, or not that blowout, but their 17-point win. But that Commanders team also didn't dominate the Raiders statistically. They had a similar number of yards. They just won by 17, had some big plays. Um, had the Mariota played well in the first game out, but you might be getting a little optimism. And I think you might catch Jaden Daniels. He was wearing a brace, practicing limited basis, but they may choose to rest him again based on what happened. And so you may be getting that Daniels out again, and that's why this number might be moving a little bit in Atlanta's favor, as people might be reading the tea leaves coming out of practice. But even if he plays, if Daniels actually plays with a knee brace, I like Atlanta. I think he needs that mobility to be truly who he is.
Yep, certainly on board with that. And my second pick of the week, one of my favorite picks here, you're going to see a theme with all these picks. We like to buy low on teams that maybe aren't as bad as the market perceives them. I'm going New England Patriots -5.5 at home against the Carolina Panthers, and we kinda get a double whammy here. You just said it with that Atlanta-Carolina game, that final score was very flattering for Carolina. They got all the bounces, they got pick sixes, you name it. Everything went their way. I don't know how good they are. I don't know how much this elevates them in my book. The first 2 weeks, they looked terrible. Like, I mean, you can put an exception on that 4th quarter, at Arizona. They actually got some things going, but that was more of a desperation mode and the Cardinals just hanging back and sort of letting them do it. Um, they haven't shown much on the road. They gotta go at New England. I think we're catching a little bit of value because New England lost last week at home to Pittsburgh. By the way, a game they should not have lost. They had 5 turnovers, 2 of them were at the goal line. Like, if anyone is preaching ball security this week, it's gonna be the New England Patriots, and they're gonna make sure that problem does not rear its ugly head again. And I think the Patriots come out extremely motivated because of that. I'm not sold on the Panthers as of now. I I know the spread's a little high, but I think catching it anything below a touchdown is pretty good. I liked what I saw out of the Patriots offense last week. I think they get the job done here by double digits potentially. So that is my favorite bet of the week. And to wrap it up, Jason is taking Atlanta against the spread in the New York Giants +6. I am going with the Cincinnati Bengals +7.5 and the New England Patriots -5.5. And then we also listed those 4 value plays to consider in your pools. Once again, that will all be listed in our Football Pick'em article on poolgenius.com, where it will be linked in the description below as well. So that's it for week 4. Good luck in your bets and good luck in your football pools.